one very near and dear to my heart, being a man from Tala. How to argue with me, Bill Mallon, okay? Now, this is going to be very important. It's going to link in with the videos on critical engagement, critical thinking, academic writing, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to show you how to argue sufficiently in your thesis. Outside of your thesis, do not argue with anyone. Always be kind, always be peaceful. But in your thesis, just be an absolute monster, okay? Look at this, okay? An academic, oh hang on, where's my... I'm lost without my laser pointer. An academic argument within a thesis serves as the backbone of the entire document. It is a central claim or proposition that the author aims to prove or defend through research, analysis, and evidence. Crafting a strong academic argument involves several key components. The thesis statement succinctly articulates the main argument or position taken in the thesis. It should be specific, debatable, and focused enough to guide the direction of the entire paper or thesis. Now look, the argument should be supported by a variety of credible evidence, including but not limited research findings, data, scholarly literature, expert opinions, logical reasoning, blah blah blah, okay? So it's all in service of your argument, okay? Now, go back on the point about logical structure, okay? Thesis should be organized in a logical manner, with each section contributing to the development and support of the central argument. We're talking about signposting here. We're talking about linking sentences, linking arguments together, okay? A clear structure helps readers follow the flow of the argument and understand its significance, okay? So anything to do with counter-arguments, rebuttals, they're very important because they acknowledge and address potential counter-arguments, and this all helps strengthen the overall argument by demonstrating its complexity and depth. Anticipating objections and providing reasoned rebuttals shows that the author has considered alternative perspectives and can defend their position effectively. So we have stuff here on critical analysis and clarity of position. Okay, so look, we're coming to the end of Bill reading the slides, okay? Let me just have a drink here. Is there anything to be gleaned here? Do I need to read these? Sure, we'll read them anyway. Look, an effective academic argument involves critical analysis of the evidence and sources used to support it. So again, look, evaluating the credibility, relevance. Whenever you come across academic writing bits and pieces that are in a document like this, you're kind of saying to yourself, well, is any of this relevant or important to me? Is it all just saying the same thing? It's basically saying the same thing, okay? It's basically saying that, look, if you're going to argue, back it up, okay? And avoid ambiguous and vague statements. Now, look, how to start an argument, okay? How, okay? So structure what you're going to say. So this is the planning stage, okay? Planning for your writing has been identified as one of the key practices of good writers. So there's our good friend Wellington there, back in 2003. And he's basically saying you need to factor in time to gather, absorb, and plan your arguments before composing the text. So writing typically consists of four main stages: planning, writing, editing, and reviewing. As writing is, look, there's our favorite word again, which I'm not going to try and say. These activities do not occur in a fixed order. Rather, writers move among these activities. So rather, writers move among these activities, although typically more time is spent on planning or thinking at the start and on editing and reviewing at the end. So what's next after planning? We'll start writing, okay? But how do you do that? Free writing, okay? I don't know why this is so small. The writing is too small for me to read. This involves writing in full sentences about a topic for a specified amount of time without planning or worrying about the quality. It can help write on all stages. That's like our good friend Elbow and Bellanov. Free writing, okay? Very important when you're doing your stream of consciousness first draft of your thesis or even an essay, that you write down the gobbledygook. This happened, then that happened, and this other thing happened. And then later on go, okay, I'm going to put in the reference to that now. I'm going to bolster the argument. Then I'm going to put in the link words on the signposts and stuff and things like that, okay? So look, structure now. After you have your mess on the page that broadly has a goal, then it's time to structure, okay? All written assignments should have three parts, okay? So whether it's an essay or a thesis, you have an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion. Okay, so the introduction states the main issues and the issues you're going to deal with in the paper or thesis. Then you have the main body, which is just the main thrust of your readings or your findings. And then your conclusion. This should not be a summary of all the points made in the assignment, but it should state what you believe to be reasonable conclusions based on the arguments made. So it's important to relate the conclusions to the question. So yeah, don't just summarize everything that just came in the last two sentences. Like we've read the last two sentences. Like we know what's happening. Structuring an argument for a thesis or essay is crucial for effectively presenting your ideas and convincing your audience. Here's a step-by-step guide, okay? So you have an introduction element, okay? So you start off with a hook, so an attention-grabbing statement, question, or anecdote related to your topic. Example, imagine a world where renewable energy sources power every home, reducing carbon emissions and combating climate change. Okay, I'm hooked, you know, I'm invested, okay? You've got me, you take my money, okay, you got me. Background information, provide necessary context and background information about this topic. Okay, you've hooked me in. Okay, give me a little bit more. Okay, you're giving me a bit more. Okay, so look, in recent years, the urgency transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy has become increasingly apparent due to the escalating threat of climate change. Okay, that's good. That's a little bit of background information. But okay, what are you going to do about it? Okay, so let's see your main argument or position. This essay, or you can substitute that for thesis, okay? This was mainly from a slideshow dealing with an essay, but they're all the same, okay? They all have the same structure. This essay or thesis argues that widespread adoption of renewable energy is imperative for mitigating climate change and securing a sustainable future, okay? Now we get to the body part. I'm just going to take another drink of water here, okay? I'm going to start hooking myself up to an IV in future so I'm not interrupting the videos. Body, okay, topic sentence. Start each paragraph with a clear topic sentence that introduces the main point of the paragraph. Here's an example. One primary reason why renewable energy is essential is its ability to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, what you're doing here is you're telling me, okay, that I'm going to set myself up for a lot of knowledge and information you're going to provide on greenhouse gas emissions, okay? So evidence, provide evidence, data, or examples to support your argument. According to a study, look, here we go. According to a study by the International Renewable Energy Agency, solar energy alone could potentially reduce CO2 emissions by over 6 gigatons annually by 2050. You can't afford to go up against conspiracy theorists. So look, then we have the explanation and analysis. Analyze the significance of the evidence, examples, and how they relate to your thesis. Well, look, this reduction in emissions is crucial for meeting international climate targets and avoiding the most catastrophic impacts of global warming. So look, we're building on what we have here. We start off with the topic, then we give the evidence, now we analyze a little bit, and now look, we're going to use transitional phrases to smoothly connect paragraphs and guide the reader through your arguments. Furthermore, so there's our link word. In addition to reducing emissions, renewable energy offers numerous economic benefits, okay? This transitionary part here, you can leave that till the very end. That's the sort of that's when you do your seasoning, your little bit of doctrine. You know, you did leave that till the very end. Here's the rest of the body element. Now you can produce a counter argument, okay? So that's where you acknowledge potential counterpoints or opposing viewpoints. And here's an example of it. Some critics argue that the transition to renewable energy is too costly and impractical. And you can refute that if you have the evidence. You can say, however, studies have shown that the long-term economic benefits of investing in renewable energy far outweigh the initial cost. For instance, a report by the World Economic Forum found that investing in renewable energy could create millions of jobs and stimulate economic growth. Okay, and then you have your concluding element of that argument you're making. Again, do some hand-holding. Always remember that the people reading your thesis need some hand-holding. Summarize your main argument and restate your thesis. In conclusion, the transition to renewable energy is not only necessary for combating climate change, but also offers significant economic and environmental benefits. And then the closing thought, completely optional if you want, end with a thought-provoking statement or call to action. Do not put in a quote from Gandhi or JFK or Barack Obama. Do this instead. It is imperative that governments, businesses, and individuals prioritize renewable energy initiatives to ensure a sustainable future for generations to come. Now, I think these closing thoughts are a bit unnecessary. I think just get in and out, okay? Just conclude the argument you're making and get back out again. Well, look, this might sound very exciting, but it's not very exciting. Filing your skeletons. Thompson and Kamler suggest selecting a passage of writing from the introduction of a published article and deleting its content. Now, what does that mean? Okay. So basically what remains is a skeleton that writers can then work with. So let's have a look at a good example of that, okay? So now look, we're going to go on to developing an argument from description to analysis and evaluation. This is going to help you move from your purely descriptive writing, okay? When your supervisor says the writing is too descriptive, what do they mean? It means it lacks an argument, basically, okay? So let's look at some examples here of that. So descriptive writing does not develop any argument. It is the fence-sitting of writing styles. It is ornate and flowery and betrays its bias at times. For it is often written as a love letter approach, almost novel-like in its descriptive nature. So let's have a look at that sort of stuff, okay? So I'm going to end the slide on this example of descriptive writing, okay? Slum areas in urban centres are characterised by dilapidated housing, overcrowding and inadequate access to basic amenities. Walking through these neighbourhoods, one is struck by the sight of makeshift shelters lining narrow alleyways, with laundry hanging from windows and children playing amidst a pile of garbage. Now, like immediately we can see that like this is just straying into novel territory, okay? All that's missing is just some, more descriptive work. Like you can kind of say like walking through these, sort of like darkened neighborhoods, and sort of with dirty laundry hanging from, shadow cast windows and, sort of like forlorn children. If you can turn your academic writing into a novel, then it's too descriptive. You need to move back into the whole analytical things, okay? Now look, the pervasive sense of poverty is palpable as residents eke out a living through informal employment and subsistence activities. Now we're making assumptions here, okay? There's a sense of resilience and community spirit among the inhabitants. How do you know that? We don't know this. Who find solace in shared cultural traditions? We don't know this either. And mutual support networks. None of this is backed up with evidence. This is basically just some guy or girl walking through a neighborhood and basically saying like, this is what I'm seeing. I'm basically just describing everything I'm seeing, okay? So let's just have a quick look at it there while I take another drink of water. So yeah, look, can we see it? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple what is going on here. This is just purely descriptive. So let's have a look at an example of the same thing, but it's more analytical, okay? Visually, even without reading, you can see, okay, this looks like it comes from an academic textbook. Urban slums represent a complex intersection of socio-economic disparities and structural inequalities perpetuated by systemic neglect and marginalization. There's a reference to that. Within these marginalized spaces, the absence of adequate housing, sanitation, and infrastructure reflects broader patterns of urban development and government's failures. There's a person who did the research on this and we can back it up. The prevalence of informal settlements and substandard living conditions underscores, there's the word again, the inability of municipal authorities to provide equitable access to housing and basic services for vulnerable populations. And there's a reference to UNICEF. So it's night and day. This is very detached. This is like a very clinical approach. The author is missing. There's no reference to garbage in the streets, which is a terrible thing to mention in anything really. It's like, that's a sort of a transient thing. Maybe there's garbage in the streets on one day, but there isn't on the next day. So you have to be very careful. And it's irrelevant information, really. I mean, you can provide that information through a non-privileged or non-high horse viewpoint by just using UNICEF and the UN and other people who are on the ground there for years and years and years and have a better idea of it than someone who took a holiday to a slum once. So always be detached. Always reference and always keep your language and your tone completely cold and clinical, okay? Because I just want the basic facts and figures, and I want the sort of the information to be given to me. We can see here that that's all that's doing, okay?